welcome everybody to this meeting of Town Council Services Committee on the 8th of November 2021, commencing at 7 o'clock. Consideration of the implications relating to COVID-19 transmission will be taken across all items on this agenda. That's just for information. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies? Councillor Shenton. Because we are looking at not only apologies for absence, but reasons for approval. Do you wish to say a few words?
Yes, so Councillor Shenton has sent his apologies to me, and unfortunately he has a medical appointment that he cannot reschedule, which prevents him from getting here tonight. I think we just need to vote on that. So I propose that we approve his reason for being unable to attend. I second that.
Thank you. So can I take a vote on that? All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. So now, declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Yes, Councillor Pudding.
Item 7.8 for Barnaby Festival.
Okay, thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No? Okay, so the next is public questions. We have no questions submitted by the public and no members of the public wishing to speak. So we'll move on to minutes of the Services Committee meeting on the 13th of September. Do I have anyone to move those as a correct record?
Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you. Are they seconded? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So all those in favour, please. Thank you. That's again.
Abstain.
Right, yeah. Apart from yourself, Councillor Cutting, as you weren't present. Thank you. Matters arising from the minutes. Are there any matters arising that don't appear on the agenda? I think we can. Okay, so we'll move on from that, and we'll now go to community. And go to you, Helen, again.
Thank you, Chair. So just to give an update on community engagement, I still continue to be a part of the Food Network, which meets monthly now. So it's just an opportunity for the group to share best practice, advice. So it's a good opportunity to network with the local groups. So that's still continuing. There's no sign of that coming to an end. It's going to continue on. Also, I've been working with the lead ranger and local schools on the Queensland Canopy project. So we've got 11 schools signed up for that. We're looking at planting those trees in January. They have to be planted between November and March. It's part of the Queen's Jubilee celebrations, but that's all well underway now. Also, the town centre manager and I held our first town centre event managers meeting last month, which was really, really good. So we got all the event managers together from all the local groups, Pride, Bikeathon, lots of different groups, and it's just again a chance to share best practice, advice, use as a sounding board if there's any issues. So we're going to continue that quarterly. So it's going to happen 4 times a year. We're meeting again in January. With obviously by then we'll have done lots more events, so we've got hopefully lots more to share from that. And also the volunteers handbook was approved at full council, and we have excitingly had some interviews now, so we're just in a position of getting references for the volunteers, and we'll hopefully in the next month or so have some volunteers that can help out at events and also help in the community with the environmental side of things, to help the rangers out. So yeah, that's my update for that one.
Looking good, thank you. We'll move on. Item 5.2, which is the CBSCE report. And I must say, I thought again it was an
excellent report from the CVS. Doesn't have to go into great detail, but it gives us enough detail, and it's good feedback from the grant that we give them. Helen, do you have anything you want to add?
Just that, as well as everything they've detailed in the report, they've been a fantastic support to me in setting up the volunteer programme. So the officer from CVS that's been helping us with this has given me advice on the interviewing and next steps and help us put the package together. So yeah, it's just been a great support through that, as well as everything else they've detailed.
Yeah, I think they're just a great group for the community, to bring the community together. Yes, Laura.
And if I can just highlight that on our new website, our new Michaelsville Town Council website, that under the community page, it links to CVS, where they created a Michaelsville hub. So there's our volunteering opportunities, but all the other volunteering opportunities in Michaelsville on that as well. So that can be accessed through our website. So that's the first time they've done it for a particular town.
Oh,
really great.
That's really good. Yeah, that's great. Well done there. Okay, so we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the local service delivery, and we'll just move down through the different points.
Okay, so what I'll do is, again, for anybody watching, I'll just do a quick run through of the events that we've got coming up and that have taken place. So we've got Park Fit. In the winter anyway, that would move to an indoor venue usually. So in the winter we are keeping it online. In the spring we will be looking at trying to bring it back in the park. And there are some challenges to overcome with that in terms of permissions from Cheshire East, but we're looking at bringing that back. So we'll see how that one goes. But they are averaging around 12 people per session online. We've had the Older Persons Day event on the 1st of October. This was in partnership with Live at Home. So due to the fact that no face-to-face gatherings had taken place, it was doorstep deliveries once again of packages, and over 160 households were visited. And also this time we partnered up with eLove again, so deliveries were made by eLove, environmentally friendly rather than what was in our cars. So we've got the planter tree for the Jubilee, which I've already mentioned, which is well underway. Welly Walk went very well. It was well attended, but it was steady throughout the day. It didn't feel unsafe at any point. Everybody was respectful. The engagement was really great. Families really enjoyed it. Had lots of nice feedback after the day. And the bike-a-thon took place on the 23rd of October. So they have raised, the final figures are yet to come in, they have raised between 4,000 and 5,000 for just drop-in. So it was a very successful day, very busy in the town. The Remembrance Projection, just want to say, Abby, like your hard work for that, you've not given up, it's been a year's worth of hard work, and tonight is the first night of it, so it's quite apt that we're discussing it tonight. Yeah, there's been lots of challenges to overcome with that one, but it's here and it's happened, so which is great.
Well, can I just say the poppies are very impressive. Walking down Chestergate with the view at the town hall at the end there, and you see those red poppies over the front of the town hall, just look fabulous. And yeah, it's going to be great if we can use it on a regular basis for different events. So as you know, we've got the poppies now, and I think we're talking about for the Christmas period, snowflakes.
Yeah.
So I think it's brilliant, and let's hope we can do even more of it. Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got the Step Into Christmas launch event on the 20th of November. So we're promoting this heavily at the moment. The radio advert is going out from tomorrow, I think. Again, we will have the snowflakes projected onto the town hall. There's going to be lots going on at that event. We're really conscious of keeping people safe as well, so we've staggered the entertainment out throughout the day, so people can have a good time, come in at any point during the day and still see something good and make them feel Christmassy and festive spirit. We've also got the Advent Trail, which the Town Centre Manager's been working on. So excitingly this year, we're going to be using an app as well. So I don't know if you want to say a little bit about the app or...
Yeah, I'm not going to turn this round because it would be very peculiar. So Local High Street have approached us about using an app for our Advent Trail. They've produced one recently for for the One Project for their Halloween trail across town, and it worked really well. Basically, people can follow the trail on a map on the app on their phone. They're able to check in at the different points. If they've checked in everywhere, they get a little digital badge to display. They can leave reviews of the shops if they're doing it during the daytime. And if there are any shops that are going to be running special offers for people following the trail, they will pop up as they check in. So it all fits together quite nicely. Again, all done on QR codes. People can do it at their leisure. There will also be a paper version as well for people who don't have smartphone capability.
Thank you. We've got the late night shopping event on the 2nd of December, which is a partnership with Michaelsville Hospitality Action. So we've got hired a structure for the marketplace, which will weatherproof the event. Again, we're promoting it heavily. So far it's been well received. We're working hard to get the shops signed up to take part in that event as well. The Winter Projection Trail, this is the Magic Lanterns. This was delayed from last year. This will take place on the 3rd and 4th of December. Sign-ups for this event are going really well. Last time I checked, it was about 60% capacity full already, which for saying when we started marketing it last week, is really good. So we're hopeful that that will be a sellout, which is great. The Tree of Lights, we've been receiving the stars today, and we've had loads and loads of stars back. We've sent 1,600 out. We will do a final count on the stars before they go on the tree next week. But that's been really popular. And the 9th of December, the event that night is just a chance for people to reflect on their loved ones, and just a chance for people to get together away from the rush of Christmas. Tunney celebration. So Town Centre Manager and I are part of a group to help celebrate 120 years since the birth of Charles Tunney, and we're working with local artist Jackie Clark on a trail. She has sent through some sample artwork for this, and it is really, really good. So again, it works on an app, so you scan it and it sort of comes to life on your phone. So there is a little bit of a delay, so that's going to be launched mid-November. But the workshops were full, so it's been really popular. Chinese New Year. Sorry.
Can I just ask about the Tunney celebration?
Yeah.
Is it correct that there's going to be an exhibition of Tunney works in the town hall during that period, or don't we know? Hasn't that been confirmed yet?
The people working on that's Cheshire East Council are working on that, so the cultural economy team. So I think it's just in the final stages of being confirmed, but I think it is going to be taking place. It's just the finer details need to be confirmed.
Hopefully it will slot in with this.
Yeah, it's all part of a package of events. There's going to be lots going on, and the promotions for that are just being finalised.
That would be good to be able to see some of the paintings that he did.
Yeah.
Here in the town hall, probably move them up from the museum.
Yeah.
And bring them here. So,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chinese New Year takes place on the 29th of January, our event. Planning for that is well underway. We work with a group of people on that event. We are looking at ticketing that event. It will be free tickets, just so we can, because obviously we don't know what the situation is going to be with the pandemic. It will give us the opportunity to track and trace, but we're going to make that decision after Christmas, when there's 3 weeks to go till the event. We'll have everything in place so that we can ticket it if we need to. The food festival tender has gone out, so we're inviting applications to run the food festival next year. So just waiting for submissions for that one. And the Queen's Jubilee celebrations. So nationally, people have been invited to hold community picnics on the 5th of June. So as part of that, we've approached local groups in each ward to see if there'd be a desire to hold a community party. Every ward, apart from East, has come back to say yes so far. So we're just looking for a different venue in East. But the idea is that there'll be a community picnic going on in every ward that day. So it'll be a chance for everyone to celebrate. Yeah, that's me for that one. Thank you.
So move on to the Christmas lights. Helen, are you taking that one too?
This one, yeah. So the actual Christmas street lights are going up on the 11th, which is this week. So they'll go up overnight. And we're putting the tender out a week today on the 15th. for the contract for the next 3 years after this one. So we'll be inviting submissions for that. Yeah, that's that.
Okay, thank you. And then floral displays 6.3. Laura, do you have a report on that?
Yes, so I've written a report to explain where we're up to with the floral displays at the moment. So we're in year 2 of a 3-year contract with ANZA to provide some of the floral displays around town, not all of them, but some of them. We've been working with them to look at Britain in Bloom, and Andy, the lead ranger, has agreed a plan of what we want, and the rangers will be doing parts. For example, in Market Square, all the planters there are actually done by the rangers, not by ANZA. So we've got a plan and we've got a map of where everything is, so that's really useful. Now, last year and the year before, the rangers were doing the watering. So the rangers have got a bowser and they were filling up water, and they were watering everything, which had to happen about 3 times a week, and it took 6 hours. It takes 6 hours to water everything. So previous to this, we paid ANZA to do the watering. Now, the thing is, when we pay ANZA to do the watering, they will also do a little bit of maintenance in Deadhead, the hanging baskets and the planters they put in. So I kind of put a proposal together, which is to consider allowing ANZA to do the watering again, so that the rangers aren't spending a day watering. They'll have to water the plants that they're responsible for, but we get that bit of extra maintenance from ANZA, and it gets, without getting too sort of into it, when the rangers water something that ANZA would put in, if it's not up to standard, ANZA sort of say, you know, well, you've not watered it properly, so it might be cleaner for us all to be separate and know what we're responsible for. But as you can see, the indicative figure is 13,184 for watering for 40 visits, and that's 104 hanging baskets, 72 barrier plants, 23 three-tier planters and 10 large box plants, and 27 extra kind of hanging baskets. They're on the side of the outdoor market, so there's quite a lot of watering to do. And the other thing to consider is that we now we'll have to pay for our own water. And before we were using it at ANZA, we're having to have a standpipe put in to use our own water as well. So I think the rangers come in a little bit cheaper than that, about 12,000. However, it's something to consider. So if you that's what I would propose, which would make the total contract £41,929 for the year.
Yeah. I mean, a point I'd make is that it's always been ANZA doing the watering, and then this last year it was decided to have a pilot study where the rangers would do some of the watering, and we would see how that went. Well, what was found really was that the rangers were spending a lot of time watering when they should have been doing other work, and it's not a great use of their time when we could use ANZA. And even though obviously there's a charge with ANZA, I think we get as you say, a cleaner service. We know exactly then who's responsible for which beds and hanging baskets and so on. And it also then frees up our rangers to do other work instead of being constantly watering through the summer. To me, I think it's worth, the cost is worth it to free up the rangers to do other work. But that's my view on it. Yes, Sandy, do you want to come in?
Just a question. So the only increase compared to what they're charging this year is for the watering?
Sorry?
The only increase in cost is for watering?
It will be the extra 13,184.
Right, so all the other costs are the same as the previous year? Sorry.
Yes, next year they will be.
Sorry, next year.
This year, what happened was there'd been an agreement with the previous town clerk to put 27 extra baskets up, and it was kind of, it was kind of an implied, yes, go ahead and do that, and they then did it this year without checking with me that it needed to be done. So the town council have honoured that, the councillors have honoured that extra payment, but I've told them next year you only do what is on that contract, nothing else. And in actual fact, because of Castle Street, many hanging baskets were missing, which they've deducted off after because they weren't put up, and we didn't, you know. So when I went back and said you need to take them off, so it's kind of balancing out. But next year, the only extra cost will be the 13,000 for the watering, unless we go back and ask them to do something else. You know, if we think we want them to do more.
Do you have any other comments? Right. Well, I'll propose that we go ahead with the contract, including the watering, which obviously means then there's that increase of 13,184. Yes?
Just to ask another question, obviously wildflowers and pollinator plants, I think they're called, are big now. Is there any provision for any wildflowers or anything in any of the planters or?
Yes, the planters that the rangers are doing are all semi-sustainable already. So instead of having summer bedding and then having winter bedding, the rangers have put bedding that can either be moved somewhere else and then come back, or that they can just have some bedding plants too. So it's something to consider for the future, that the rangers who are doing the ones outside here now, the cost of filling them up should go down year over year because they'll be semi-sustainable. So yeah, there is lots of sort of, the rangers use peat-free soil and everything, and they're looking at sustainable planting, and also with Britain in Bloom we've got plans to wildflower certain places around town if we get permission.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for the clarification.
So I think we still need a seconder.
I'm happy to second that.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments on the proposal? Okay, so we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Yes, that's unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Okay, so right, the perennial subject, public toilets. Laura, do you have any update for us?
So, in terms of, we proposed at full council, we spoke about a changing places bid that has gone in with Cheshire East, that's gone in, and Cheshire East, we've matched funds some of that, and the proposed place that would be the back of the indoor market. With, as far as us acquiring Exchange Street for a particular public toilets to build them ourselves, we just are not getting any reply from the landowners, and our solicitor is struggling. I would suggest that we look to have some toilets at the back of the indoor market, or opening up the ones there, working with our Cheshire East colleagues. I think that's actually a preferred position, and there's already a market, sort of people looking after that space. And as I understand it, I know the town centre manager and Councillor Livingston had spoken to traders in the indoor market, and they were keen on that. They weren't opposed, because, you know, I've been hearing, oh, they don't want anyone to use them, and actually the opposite was coming back. So I think we need to pursue that with Cheshire. That would be my suggestion, but I don't think it will be quick or easy.
No. Yes, Councillor Putty.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I think that I think certainly having toilets at the back of the market is a sensible idea. I'm just a bit disappointed that, you know, we've sounded this out year on year for so it was about 4 years ago that I first heard that as a suggestion, and it's been, and unfortunately what's happened with Exchange Street and the negotiations over pieces of land and ownership and what have you, subsoil, has been incredible. But I do think that it should be noted, just so that we we know between our committees, I'll be really clear on this, as the chair of the finance committee, we have spent thousands of pounds subsidising toilets for events, and I know I'm like a broken record, but it's so frustrating that we continue to have to fund these things because there are no toilets in certain locations. And you know, the most recent one is with Christchurch and the toilets there, which obviously, you know, that's the churches just not pulling their weight either, but it is very disappointing. So I just think it needs to be noted that money from the town council is having to step in because of the lack of toilets. And so you know, I think we really should, you know, if you talk to people, that's what they want. They want to see public toilets, especially for people with disabilities. But there is a cost to inaction with this.
Just can I say, I must defend the Church's Conservation Trust at Christchurch, because they don't have very much money. They have a lot of redundant churches, and we were never even on the radar, Christchurch, for a long time. We are now on the radar, but unfortunately we're not very high up on that ladder for having money spent on us, unfortunately. And I think, whether people are aware or not, but Christchurch, there is no water, there is no heating, there's no facilities there at all. And all I'll say is that I'm very pleased that the town council do support toilet facilities when events happen there, you know, and I think that's great that the town council do it. And I agree, we need to be getting public toilets in the town. And what I would maybe just say from this services committee, if we can action Laura to really pursue the installation of toilets behind the indoor market, and try and really put some pressure on Cheshire East to get moving on that. I think at least we're showing residents that we are trying to get the public toilets. Okay, so I know you wanted to come in, sorry Laura.
It's fine, I just wanted to say I'm hoping a positive bid for a Changing Places toilets there will be the kickstart to why don't we put all the toilets here. So I'm keeping track of where that bid is up to.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So next is 6.5 Festoon lights. Helena.
Nothing much to say other than there were some bulbs reported as being out on Church Street, so but Light came out and fixed that promptly, so that's been sorted.
Right, thank you. And Tunney Trail, another just point on that one.
So the project officer has been working hard on this for a number of years now, chipping away, trying to make progress. It's been difficult, but now planning have asked, and Cheshire East Council have asked for some technical drawings of what the paintings will look like. So when they've got those drawings, they'll be able to decide if they need planning permission or not. So it is going to be a long process. I know it's already been quite long, but it's challenging. So the project officer is looking at how to get those drawings and what the cost is going to be.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's looking in, and doesn't know, not maybe seen the subject before, it's a proposed trail around town following Tunney and his, particularly his wildlife paintings, but there are some landscapes and other street scenes. And the idea is that we will have various images, replica paintings on the walls around the town, and people can have, it's like a trail and can follow it round. But as we know, these things grind exceeding slow, particularly where planning permissions needed or whatever. So, but hopefully we will do it, and whether we will achieve it during the 120th year of Tunney, I don't know, but it'll still be, I think it'll be a worthwhile exercise. Okay. Right, 6.7, Barnaby Festival. Laura, I think you're going to speak to this report.
So basically there's lots of bits to this. there is the annual report from Barnaby with also an activity report, and that's for 2020 to 2021, along with the accounts for 2020 to 21. I did ask for the accounts for this year, and they are with the auditor. Also at the back of that there is a request for delivering for next year, I have put in the under agenda item 12, the budget. I have at the moment budgeted 10,000 for Barnaby, and Barnaby have put a request for funding in for 2022 to 23 to support the return of the Barnaby Festival, and they're actually requesting more than 10,000. It's 12,170. So as you can see, it's all laid out what it's for. I think it's for, one is for a freelance finance and admin support, and one is for a parade coordinator, and then I think, oh yeah, one is for a cherry picker and materials and volunteer expenses. So it comes to 12,170, but the budget has 10,000 in so far at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Right, do I have any speakers on this one? Just while people may be thinking about it, I was just wondering how many trees have to be sacrificed for these reports, to be honest. Rather a lot of information. I was rather disappointed that the accounts that we received were for 2020, when the accounts do run to 29th of September. So, you know, we're now into November, and I don't know whether I'm speaking for everybody else, but I certainly would have appreciated having draft accounts for up to September 2021. So that was disappointing that we didn't have those up-to-date figures. So, and they do, you know, looking at those figures for 2020, they do have a considerable amount of money in the bank. May have changed, of course, but that's unfortunately we can't see that because we've not got the figures. I'm not inclined to support any addition to 10,000, which traditionally they do receive from us. And even then, you know, should we automatically give 10,000 every time? I'm not inclined myself to add any further to that number. Yes, Sandy, Councillor.
Just some clarity. So we clearly, Janet covered some of the questions we've been asking. Generally, it's been £10,000 that we've provided. But what I wasn't clear on is the proposal for next year. Clearly, it will be more of an in-person festival. I do think it's something that's worth backing. I think backing the arts and getting Michaelsville known for that sort of artistic intervention is useful because it differentiates the town and it does light to bringing people into the town. I think it's a great thing to do. I wasn't quite clear what it is you would be giving 10 grand for. Is it similar to last year? What, maybe just
it would, well,
similar to the year before when it would have been
a physical parade. Yeah, for the past few years it's been virtual parade, and the council is still giving them 10,000. So this next year we would hope it would be a physical parade and events
associated with it.
So you would be paying for 4,200 for an admin and finance role, and just under 7,000 for a parade coordinator role. And then if you didn't well, that's more than, you would be paying towards those two costs roughly. So we have a service level agreement with them, which is to, last year it was to do, well, we hoped we'd get a physical parade, but we didn't. So this year, when we write up the service level agreement, if approved, we will be saying, you know, it's for a physical parade. I think if there isn't a physical parade, maybe that's something, you know, if something happens and you can't have a physical parade, is that something you know, you still want to give 10,000 to? I don't know.
But that's helpful context as well in terms of it being a service level agreement as well. This is an opinion, it's not a proposal, but I would be minded to retain, given that it was a virtual parade, I think we should support it, but keep it at £10,000, unless there's a reason that additional funding is required. I think my view.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I agree actually that we should stick to the budget, and you know, when I first moved to Michaelsville, one of the things that I love about its quirkiness was the Barnaby Parade and all the different community groups being involved in that, and I think it's going to bring the town back to life again. Hopefully we'll be able to do that for the next Barnaby, and I do think as a council we have that responsibility to keep in budget. So yeah, I agree with Sandy and jealous. It's been a long day.
Okay. Yeah, I think the 10,000 budget is appropriate. Just looking at the funds, they want that extra 2,170. Well, I think we can make that from their funds, to be fair. And I think 10,000 is it is generous, considering that they've had 2 years of virtual events, which, well, I mean, I'm no expert, but I wouldn't have thought that it would need the same amount of expense as you know, as actual events. Could be wrong, but that's, I think, my perception. So, do we have a proposer for anything?
I
Yes,
would
Sandy?
propose that we fund to the budget of £10,000.
Okay, thank you. And Sarah? Seconded. Okay, so that's the proposal. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, that's unanimous. With the exception of Councillor Pudgett, of course, who can't take part in the voting. Right. Barnaby 6.8. Barnaby Air, formerly Redux.
Yes, so Barnaby Air is the former Redux project that, if you remember, we agreed a year ago actually, and which the councillors gave them an extra year, remember, because it was supposed to be done by this year.
Yes.
So this is an update on the project. Again, they have a service level agreement for this, and they've only had the first half because there is certain triggers for the second half, which is the results of the consultation and the digital map, which was due to be delivered in June, but it's not been done yet. So the second payment will only be made when those triggers are come forward. But this is just an update on the Barnaby Air, how far they've got with their consultation and the possible micro commissions.
Yeah. Okay. So we just await
Chair,
outcome. Yes.
and if I just comment on this, I think that if I may, about it, that I think one finding, it's not necessarily clear in the whole report, but I think one thing that very much came out of this was that there were a series of events that were research really to find out what people wanted, and one thing that really came out was that people want something abstract. And the reason I say this is it is quite important. I say this as the person who creates the really community, you know, the very sort of everybody get together for community party type things. but it's really interesting. Their research has unearthed that people want something a bit quirky, as you know, as Councillor Bennett Wake says. You know, they want something a bit different, and it's I do think that's worth noting, that you can overdo the sort of just the same old, you know. And I think that was a really interesting piece of research they've done. I haven't seen the results from the Western Park study they did, because they particularly tried to not just work in the town centre, which is really good, because, you know, I mean, certainly as a councillor for Mac South, we complain that too much stuff is in the centre and not out on the outskirts. But I actually thought that some of the research has been really quite useful to practitioners and to people, and I do hope that it results in some good artist commissions from it.
Thank you. Okay, no other comments? No, so we'll move on then to item 7, leisure and outdoor activities. So the first one is parks and play areas.
So we've got several parks on the go at the moment. It's going from years back. So we've got Bunbury Park, which is in Councillor Bennett Wake's ward, where I am told that they have fixed the drainage and the mugger. I haven't checked that physically, but that's what I'm told, and they will be invoicing us for that work, and then there is some money left over that was for planting and different things that I think Anne's going to talk to you and Councillor Carter about possibly. So that's where it's Banbury Park. Lanark Walk, the swings still need painted. I've been told 3 to 4 weeks. I was told that last week. I will never give up on getting these swings painted. And there's also the issue with fire, which they are looking to repair. I did get the fire safety.
Yeah, I just want to ask
yes, we did get that, which I can send. If I've not sent on to you, I can send on to you.
Yeah,
Windmill Park. So basically, all that was left to do there was picnic benches and bins. I'm right, Councillor Wilson. It's kind of been done.
Well, no, because in actual fact what it says here, picnic benches have been installed and the recycled picnic bench will be moved to the patch where the trim shell was going to go. That hasn't happened. So the recycled picnic bench is still sat on the grass near all the new picnic benches, and the new picnic bench, and the new one's been put in the place we asked for the recycle one to go. So although it has been done, what we asked for hasn't been done, and actually I don't want to sound like I'm being difficult here, but they haven't done what we asked them to do. And this was part of the 2019 spend on £100,000 spend on parks and play areas, and we paid for this during that accounting year, and we still haven't had what we paid for, which is very disappointing. I'm not quite sure how clear you have to be before AMSA will do what we asked them to do. I'm disappointed as the ward councillor.
And we have a meeting with AMSA tomorrow, so we can raise it with them there to tell them to swap it over. And then we've agreed for 25,000 for the BMX track, and AMSA know that, and they're working with the community groups to see how much money they can raise, or what they think they might be able to raise, so they can get a general figure to be able to put that out to tender. The Western, a consultation has been done through various methods, paper, online, and by Councillor Hutchison standing there. And we've had quite a lot, we've probably had about, 35, 40 replies. I just collated it all today, so I've just let Councillor Councillor Hutchison know. And what's coming out is zip wires and CCTV. So,
you don't mean CCTV
but yeah, and interestingly, some kind of artwork near the skate park there, which is something that I know a couple of local artists had also already independently said, if there's ever an opportunity to do a mural or get kids involved. So tomorrow at the AMSA meeting I'll give them a brief update. I'll catch up with Councillor Hutchison, and he can make a final decision with Councillor Howard, and then will go ahead. It will be next year. They said by the time they order things and put it in, it will be next year. So, but I'm pleased with how the consultation went. And then the accessible equipment that we agreed to at full council has been ordered, and it's going at South Park, and it should be in for the new year, an accessible seesaw and an accessible roundabout.
Good, that's great.
Can I ask a question about the South Park accessible equipment?
Mm-hmm.
I think tomorrow when we meet with ANZA, we need to be absolutely clear where that's going to go. And so we can make sure that what is delivered is what we've actually agreed. And while I'm speaking on this particular agenda item, I think that the work that's been done by the community in improving the BMX track and then working to raise funds to work with us to install a new BMX track is absolutely brilliant. But again, I want to keep a really close eye on that, because I've learnt by experience that you've absolutely got to be really clear about these things. Otherwise, we invest funds, but we don't actually get what we've paid for. And I think it's really important that we continue to do that.
ANZA have sent me a map, which I will send on to everybody, of where the equipment will go. I verbally spoke to them and asked them to explain it, because I don't know, I couldn't visualise where it was, and I was told it's going where all the other playing equipment is. It's an because I was worried it'd be put separately somewhere, like a separate access, and I thought, no, it's got to be integrated with the rest, and I was assured that will happen, so I will send you the map.
Yeah,
in time for the
there's
meeting.
2 play areas in South Park.
Right.
There's a play area for younger children where there is space for this equipment to go, and then there's a play area for older children which is quite tight in terms of space, and the actual space next to it for expansion goes up a hill, so there need to be quite significant groundworks to put it in that location. So let's be certain tomorrow when we meet with ANZA exactly where the equipment's going to go.
I'll send them out after the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
7.2 South Park Pavilion.
So we have identified a little South Park Pavilion working group. Everybody has been sent the terms of reference for review, and a little sort of information gathering session. We hope to have a meeting soon, definitely before Christmas, to move that ahead, and hopefully we will be able to possibly tie it in with the Cheshire East and ANZA master plan for South Park, potentially, depending on timings.
Yeah. So then we can have our consultation on that as part of the South Park strategy consultation. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let the committee know that myself and the Chair, Councillor Jackson, this week have attended 2 meetings on behalf of the Town Council with ANZA over the South Park Master Plan, both of which were very positive. We had a walk around the park on Tuesday with other Cheshire East councillors and also the community members, and then we had a meeting here at the Town Hall on Friday where we talked through the actual master plan process. Janet and I have been very clear that we want full consultation to take place. We've talked about making sure that we involve local school students about what they want. I think that was very successful as part of the conservation area appraisal that we had, and we will be having a separate meeting in the next few weeks, hopefully, to talk about the consultation. And certainly Janet and I were very strong in making the point that we'd like the consultations to run on a similar timescale, because whilst I'm absolutely clear, the South Park Pavilion is the Town Council's project, and we will be seeing that through, but it fits in the park. It's just nice to be reminded what a beautiful park South Park is, and on the day when we went for the walk round, it was indeed a lovely day.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so we'll move on to 7.3, playing out. And I think we'll all know there isn't a report on this.
There's no report, but I was going to give a verbal update if that's okay. So this is the project to encourage children, well, it's a street play project, a national concept, and we're going to try our best to launch it in Michaelsville. So we have a group of volunteers now that are trained in traffic management, which was the requirement from Cheshire East Council, which is great, of which Councillor Wilson is one. And I did have a conversation last week with one of the volunteers that's involved with the 2 areas that we're planning to pilot this in. So she's involved with both Max South and also Herdsfield. And she did tell me that they're just struggling for capacity at the moment, so we're going to look to have a meeting in early January for a spring launch of Play Now. So when the nights are a bit lighter, we can have all the equipment ready, have everything in place. So I have said to her I will support the volunteers wholeheartedly to make sure we can get the project up and running in the spring.
Okay, so we'll just watch out, look out for that once
Yes,
we get to
yeah.
the lighter nights.
Yeah.
It won't be long, hopefully. Okay, thank you, Helena. Allotments. Yes.
The allotments, basically the project officer Gillian manages the allotments. The allotments we run are close to full capacity, which is brilliant. And recently we have given Grow Macclesfield 2 allotment spaces at South Park, at Park Grove, to which will be used for community allotments there as well, which is very exciting.
Thank you. Okay, yes. We'll move on. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just a question in relation to Spurtles Road and legal.
Yes,
Still waiting.
for the extra bit of land
Yeah.
that's under the contract of Everybody Leisure. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
I do send them emails.
No,
every month.
I'm not saying you're not.
It's just
Just to see.
yeah. Well,
Okay. Right. So we'll move on to street sports. So we're back with you, Helena.
Yeah, it's going well. In September there was an evening session that had 22 children out, which is fantastic. So it's double figures at pretty much every session now. So it's grown, it's doing really well, and it continues in its original locations throughout the winter. So rather than moving locations like they have in previous years, they're staying in the same locations and utilising lighting. So they're always in the same place, so people know they're always going to be there.
On the same nights.
Same
as
nights,
well,
everything's
so
exactly the same,
yeah,
just continues.
it's good. People have a routine then.
Yeah.
It encourages them to continue to take part.
Yeah.
You know that it's going to be there. So that's good. Premier League kicks. Laura, are you or Helena? Yeah.
Yeah, I can
Yeah.
update. Yeah, it's so the project officer looks after the Premier League kits. There's been an increase in referrals. There's been 2 more referrals, so it continues. So it's going well.
And when does it actually take place?
It takes place as far as I'm aware. It takes place at the football club.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now you see, you'll note the segue now. Just to say, has everybody seen the documentary about Michaelsville Football Club?
Yes.
Via iPlayer, and shall I just say, I thought it was an excellent promotion for the club, but also I thought for Macclesfield. You know, there were a lot of views of Macclesfield and the views of the hills, and it made Macclesfield to be, you know, a really nice place to live, and I think we'd all agree with that. I think it is a great place to live, and I thought it was an excellent documentary, and I'm hoping we'll see much more of Macclesfield football as they move up the leagues. So yes, it was a really good programme. Okay, so we move on to item 8. Street scene, street furniture, 8.1. Yes, Laura?
So we at last services committee we agreed 6 more benches for St Michael's so that people could enjoy eating their lunch, etc. there. They are still they're looking for a price for installation. They have gone to ANZA, and ANZA have said that they've sort of said no, we haven't got the capacity to do it. I said go back and say, well, when will you have the capacity?
Yes.
You know, because if it's a case of just waiting, it's not that they can't do it, it's,
Yes.
you know, because they were really struggling to find somebody else to do it, and they were quite clear that they wanted a sort of qualified outfit rather than just a bloke who would come and do it for them, because it's obviously, so I'm still trying to work with them to find somebody to get it installed.
Yeah.
The second part is, as many of you will know, that there's a Welcome Back Fund with Cheshire East Council, where we put in all the town councils could put in sort of requests for different things. So we'll be getting deck chairs which will have not quite the Macclesfield stripe, but near enough. There'll be deck chairs unique to Macclesfield which we'll be able to lend out and have at events, etc. There will be gazebos which we will hope some of them, if it becomes permanent outside Five Clouds, that there'll be gazebos there for them and other places should they request them. And there was things like planters and painting furniture, etc. It's all got to be procured across Cheshire East, so the person doing it has to get quotes for the across. It's quite a slow process, but it's all in hand. And for all these goods we're going to have, we requested extra storage from Cheshire East Council, and they have suggested that we have a container out the back, which I've said yes please. So we will rent a storage container and it'll be in the car park at the back, and then we can store in, you know, gazebos, everything like that. And if anybody wants to borrow them, they can just drive around the back rather than lugging them up and downstairs, etc. So fingers crossed that'll happen. At a significantly less cost than would have been had we gone elsewhere for storage.
Yeah, well, so that's good. The only thing I'm just a little concerned about, thinking of through the winter now, is the condition of items stored in it, thinking with the cold and condensation, etc. So I think we definitely need to just have a regular check. If we've got stuff in there, I think we need to have regular checks on a, you know, I won't say a daily basis, but probably at least a weekly basis, just to ensure. And if there is any way that we can help to keep the inside dry and you know, and more appropriate for storage, then definitely we need to do that. Yes, Councillor Putty.
Thanks, Chair. Just to say, I think that the container sounds fantastic. I think there's storage is something that a lot of our partners and community organisations talk about as an ongoing issue in terms of like the because actually having space is almost as important as funding in a lot of ways to get your services as close to people as possible. I just wondered, I know that some of the community organisations were asking about the butter market as well. I don't know whether the town council was part of that as well as a suggestion. Or
I think at the moment there's lots of overtures towards Cheshire East about the town hall and the butter market and the old police station. So I know that Cheshire East are kind of trying to listen, and they're actually doing a feasibility study on what could be made of the town. Yeah,
and if it was just to carry on,
yes.
Sorry Chair, just that actually doing this is something that would benefit numerous community organisations and partners. And just another thing, just put it out there, there's an alternative model to playing out that I've spoken to people about in communities that uses containers. So any feedback you get from that container, you know, could be really interesting for, say, in Weston Park or in a different place to enable playing out or to enable youth services or all sorts of different services. So I just think there's quite a lot of scope for us to study and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think it'd be a good learning exercise for other organisations, as you say, Councillor.
Can I just say one thing, Chad?
Yes.
Just for the sake of anybody is watching, whenever we've asked to use the butter market or another room, Cheshire East have always responded positively. You know, we used the butter market the other day to paint the railings and etc. So you know, they are open to borrowing and using. So yeah.
And I think probably, you know, Andy and Becky from Treacle Market, I think they probably may well be approaching to just use it on certain occasions, because I think Treacle Market do use it.
They do.
So, you know, there are uses of the butter market. It's not just a closed space and nobody's using it.
There's a craft fair in it, isn't there?
Yeah, I was just going to say, for our second Christmas event, the craft fair that would usually be held in the assembly room, it's not really safe to hold it in there because of the capacity and managing the queue of people. So we've worked with Cheshire East and it's going to be held in the butter market.
Oh, great. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A bit more ventilation.
Yes, and the ventilation, people feel safer.
accessibility as well.
Yeah. So that's
really good. Yes.
Just to round this off, can you clarify, I know why, deck chairs are so important to Michaelsville, for those who don't know?
Because we made the first deck chairs in Michaelsville. So, there we go. Yeah, not a lot of people know
No,
that.
I don't.
Okay, right. Where are we? Oh, Town Ranger. Laura, do you want to give a brief?
Yes, so as you can see, once again, the lead rangers put together quite an extensive report of all the bits and pieces that the work requests they've done. Obviously, they've been working very hard on the Jubilee trees with Helena, because Andy sort of was recommending which trees suited which area. It's great to have somebody with all that experience. And then obviously we've been planning at the moment for Britain in Bloom, as well as him organising and the other rangers doing all the other bits and pieces. So it's been a busy time for them.
Yeah. And, I just want to say, looking at the report from Andy, our Rangers team are absolutely brilliant. I mean, it's been said before, if they declared themselves as a political party, we'd all have to look out, because they're the most popular group of people on the council. Well, no, not quite, because I've got to think of our other officers here, who do an excellent job too. But it's great just to see the work they do, and long may they continue. So we move on then to notice boards.
So notice boards, good news for Councillor Wilcock is once we can order and we don't need planning permission. That's where we're at now. So the notice board comes to just under £700 and we'll be ordering it, and I think Gillian is just waiting for a picture from Core of exactly where it needs to go.
They've got that. The latest email is just written confirmation from Core. So once that's been sent back, we might have noticed.
Yeah, and we're just looking at quotes for installation, because that's just the notice board, £700, then it's installation as well. And just a quick update, as I know Councillor Wilson wanted notice boards and a bench at Thornton Square. I'm still chasing them. I think the last email they'd asked me where exactly did you want them, and had said outside the shop, so I've not heard back from them yet, but I will continue to pursue them.
Yeah.
So we might get it up for Christmas.
Which Christmas?
Okay, next item is the Middlewood Way lighting.
So at the last services committee, I contacted Craig Brown, the
Chair of the committee.
Yeah, because they put forward the chair of the committee, and because we weren't getting any updates. So today we've had an update from Highways, and if I'm okay just to quickly read it out.
Yep.
So it's from the street lighting team leader at Cheshire East Highways. Just before I read it out, just to remind everybody that this was agreed in 2019, and before I came you'd previously been given a quote that when I started I tried to get an updated quote. That took 9 months and then we agreed in March to the updated quote, and then it was changed a bit. We decided to go for a stronger solar light, so we agreed again in June that it would be this extra cost, and that's when we went back in June and said, right, go ahead, let's do it. So as far as I knew I'd been chasing this, and I'd been told that there was some change to the finance system in ordering things, etc. So things were taking longer. And today we've had an update which says, I wanted to write to you with regards to the delivery of the lighting scheme for the Middlewood Way. As I explained, there was a need for me to carry out some checks to make sure that the scheme we are providing is fit for purpose. I didn't know that. I have consulted with the design team, as my knowledge of solar lighting is limited, and although there is no obligation to provide street lighting to light an area. If street lighting is provided, then it must be to the correct lighting standard of the area it is lighting. This is the British standard for lighting. BS 5489 states that that lighting does not have to be installed, but if the choice to light it is taken, then it must adhere to guidance and standards. In this case, BS 5489 and PLG 23 should be applied. The design team have also advised that the use of solar lighting will not be sufficient along here, as the tree cover is too dense, and therefore insufficient charge will be received by the lanterns in order to keep them lit at the required standard for the hours of darkness. This poses a risk to both us and yourselves. If something happened that brought into question the suitability of a solar lighting scheme for this particular location, then it could be a major risk. For us to be able to carry out the installation of a scheme along this section of the Middlewood Way that you require, then a full and comprehensive lighting design needs to be carried out. This is something we'll be able to complete on your behalf, and I will be able to obtain a quote for doing so. Once the design is complete, we would then quote for the installation / construction based upon that. Whilst I do understand this is not the response you will be looking for and you will be disappointed, it would be unreasonable of us to provide you with something that is not suitable for the purposes being used. Kind regards.
Thank you. Are we a bit back to square one, practically?
All I will say is quickly, and I know Helen has been dealing with this, I was not aware that there was a need to carry out some more checks to make sure that this scheme was fit for purpose. I was told it was just an ordering software issue.
It was just the practicalities and there wasn't any other.
Yeah.
Yes, right, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So as the councillor who originally made this proposal to our full council in June 2019, and all the hoops we've jumped through since then, which have been very well covered by the town clerk, I have to say this email that's arrived today is beyond disappointing for a project that we have publicly committed that we will do. Just a little bit of additional history here before we decide how to go forward. The original proposals were from Cheshire East Council, and they contained costings and details about solar lighting and the installation process, including all the equipment. We originally agreed we wanted to do so, but at the other councils thought we should ask Cheshire East Council to pay for it, because it is indeed their responsibility to pay for it at the end of the day. And so some time was lost waiting for the refusal, which we all anticipated. We then got a further quote, which we agreed at full council, and we agreed to go ahead with regarding solar lighting. And then, as the town clerk said, a further note came back when there was a change of personnel at Cheshire East Council to recommend a higher wattage of solar lighting because there are trees around. Now, I'm not an expert in solar lighting, but you don't need to have the sun shining on your solar light unit, you know, all the time. Solar lighting it's ambient, it soaks in light from all around. And unless this British Standard 5489 and other requirement PLG 23 has suddenly become the law on solar lighting, I'm actually at a massive loss as to know why this wasn't the case in June 2019 when the original quote came from Cheshire East Council. And thinking really about it since, you know, just now about what's happened, I really can't understand, I genuinely can't understand why Cheshire East do not want to go ahead with this project, because that's what it looks like. But we've committed to do this. People have asked me about it. It's been in it. We've publicly said we're going to do it, and there is a time when it starts to be reputational damage that we promise to deliver and then don't. Yet we have done everything in our power to make this happen. This is part of our active travel strategy. This is part of enabling people to travel into Michaelsville along the Middlewood Way, which services thousands and thousands of residents, to safely and away from traffic travel into town, whether it's cycling, whether it's running, whether it's walking with a buggy, whether it's taking children to school that is just off the Middlewood Way. So Chair, I think we should tackle this at the highest level in the council. I think we need to go back to senior officers in the council, including the chair of the committee, Craig Brown, including the the chief executive and also the leader of the council, Councillor Sam Corcoran, who is somebody who quite rightly speaks regularly about the importance of the environment, and this is an environmentally friendly initiative. And I also think we should keep in our armour, and I'd be prepared to do this, to go to Cheshire East Full Council at a future meeting, maybe the December one, to actually ask what the problem is. Because if British Standard 5489 requires to be met, why weren't we told that in June 2019? I'm actually beyond annoyed about this, colleagues, so I'm actually going to leave it there.
Okay. Yes, Councillor?
I just wonder if the issue here is a little bit of sort of blame culture, if they're wondering if we like the Middlewood Way, someone fell in the canal or fell over and putting a claim against the council, in which case all you need to do is put a disclaimer notice up and say, you know, this Middlewood Way is lived by solar lighting, you know, continue at your own risk. Which people do anyway. People decide to walk down there when it's going dusk. People have got some common sense. And as Councillor Wilson said, why weren't we told this in the first place? I'll be looking them up later.
Yes. Well, it appears that the scheme was good enough for Cheshire East. At the start, they were saying this is the scheme, it's just we can't put it in because we haven't got the funding. So then we offered to fund it then.
Absolutely.
And then there's just been the hold-ups of the general thing as it does go through Cheshire East, it takes a time. And to then come back with a total change of tack like this is really more than disappointing, as you said. Now, I'm not quite sure who was next, Sandy or...
I was just going to sort of say as well, Councillor Wilson, it's saying it in 2019, it's saying it in 2020 when we got another quote, it's saying it when we got another quote, and then we got another quote, and then, oh, it's delayed because we can't order because our software system's changed. At no point since I've been here was ever those standards the reason.
Exactly.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, well, it's just the point that in the, you know, it's the week of COP26, and people are talking about institutions that don't understand active travel, and I would never obviously place blame on an officer or anybody in the institution, but it's quite clear here that the people involved don't prioritise alternatives to road travel. That seems to be the part of the concern here, is that they simply haven't considered it up until this point. And unfortunately, that is my experience of it, but I do think, as Councillor Wilson says, it's reputational damage. When we're talking about a climate emergency and we're offering solutions to it, and then we're being blocked, it's unacceptable. And we're talking about year 3 or 4 now of this, aren't we?
Yes, Sandy.
Just to support Councillor Wilson and fellow councillors, I think that my knowledge, I don't know this British standard, but it will have been in existence in 2019. That's very unlikely, it's just been written. So I think in support of, I agree with Councillor Wilson, I think the council, town council has reputational put forward that it will, as part of active travel, ensure that the middle way is lit. Is prepared to fund it, and if therefore the response from council officers is very disappointing, they should have been aware and should have taken due cognizance of the British standards long before now. And I would agree that we should raise this with Cheshire East, both Craig Brown, the leader of the council committee in charge, and if necessary we should then escalate it further to the full council meeting. I think just place our displeasure as a town council.
Do you want to actually formally move something that we can actually record and vote on? I think it is that serious that I think we should do that.
Well, I'm happy to move something. Thank you, colleagues, for the discussion. I thought it was very useful. I move in regard of the latest communication for the Middlewood Way lights that we return to Cheshire East Council, we contact the Chair of the Relevance Committee, the Chief Executive of Cheshire East Council and the leader of Cheshire East Council, specifically in reference to the environmental issues here, that we establish in regard of the British Standards 5489, and that if necessary we make an intervention at a future full council meeting to express our disquiet about this situation.
Do I have a seconder? Yeah, thank you. That's what I put it. Okay. All those in favour of that proposal? Yeah. That's unanimous. Thank you. Yes, very disappointing that. And let's hope that we can actually get some action on it. Because we're not going to roll over, are we?
Absolutely not. You just begin to wonder what exactly the issue is after all this time.
Yes, yes. Okay, right. 8.5, adoption of the 2 BT phone boxes that we can see outside the town hall. Yes, Laura.
So the phone boxes, we get quite a few people saying, oh, no phone boxes, what are you doing with those phone boxes? So the Rangers cleaned them, and then we decided, well, we'll paint them. So they are listed. So I spoke to Andrew Ramshaw, who said, you have to ask BT. When I asked BT, they said, oh, right, no, what they actually said was you and your friends can't paint them. And I was like, it's not me and my friends. And explained, and they came back going, well, we'd rather you didn't paint them. We could maybe get them on our painting schedule for 22-23. And I was like, oh, I just want to paint them and clear the perspex. And then they came back and said, what about adopting them? So basically when we adopt them, I think it costs us £1 per phone box, but we would then be responsible for maintenance of them from that point forward. Now, looking back at other phone boxes we've adopted, there hasn't been huge maintenance. They've normally had defibs in or something like that. But with those ones being quite prominent, and with Britain in Bloom coming up, and with a lead ranger who's got ideas coming out, it would be, and Abby, also the town centre manager, has many ideas for it as well. It might make a nice distinctive little feature, and you know, at least we could paint them, you know, and so I don't know how long the process takes. I don't know if it would be quick enough for Britain in Bloom, but I just thought, well, it's an option. Otherwise I can ask them to put it on their list to paint, so me and my friends don't paint it.
Yeah, I think I'm getting lots of nods here. There's Sandy as the Central Ward Council.
Okay, so I probably will agree with me. I think the idea of adopting was fantastic. I think we can do many things with them, and given the feedback and being a wee bit quirky, I think we should use our imagination. They're a great location, so I would be fully supportive.
Yeah, I think you're next.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I would just say, I think that if we actually look back at the history of the 2 previous councils since 2015, we've been offered some pretty poor phone boxes. Such
modern, they've been the modern ones.
Yeah, modern ones, but also ones that are on the board, on the edge of town, or very away from where people are, and with all sorts of issues attached to them. And of course that makes them really quite unsuitable. Things like defibrillators, where you really have to plan for them to be in the right place. So I mean, I think this offer is much better than previous offers. I think the other thing is that we've been talking about a container, and basically making this area more, having more services and more uses. I mean, I personally would see something like a way to work with the visitor information centre, or to communicate better, you know, maybe work with the storage in some way, but really it'd be part of our sort of offer for this space. I think that could be really positive. And we can paint in blue or whatever.
You can't, because they're listed.
Sorry, I'm being very controversial.
Just to say, £2 a bargain. Shall I pay for them?
So I'll move that we will adopt the 2 phone boxes outside the town hall. Do I have a seconder for that? Right, Chris. All those in favour? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. Town centre regeneration. 9.1 Town Centre Recovery Working Group.
So we've done a brief update. We had we updated the terms of reference, so we're carrying on for another year. The group works very well together and is making lots of positive change. We had a meeting last week where we were discussing things like Britain in Bloom and how we want, you know, if everybody in the town and the shops can get involved, have that community feel, and things like the Welcome Back Fund. I'm sure Councillor Wilson has more to add than me. My update was very brief. I can't think of anything.
No, I think, I mean, one of the interesting points, I think, is the Peaks and Plains development, the crossing east down behind the cenotaph. And that's due to come on stream very shortly now. And they're encouraging the local businesses down there to get involved by providing welcome vouchers to the new residents as they come in, to get them involved with the businesses. So there's a lot happening down there, and also lots more in the town with the outdoor hospitality and all the other initiatives that are going on with Christmas activities and so on. Is anyone wanting else? Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, just to add, because you covered some of the points that I would have made, but I think one of the really exciting projects we've got going on with the Town Centre Recovery Working Group is indeed the outdoor hospitality and the areas that we're looking to, we've supported already in the past. The area outside Five Clouds is bustling, it's very popular. If we can get toilets at the back of the town, at the back of the market, I think that covered area there will be a good location for outdoor hospitality. And there's also the possibility of doing something in Park Green we've been talking about, around the events that are around there. I think the point that Councillor Jackson's made about Sunderland Street and the crossings, the Peaks and Plains location bears repetition. That area is going to have between 250 and 300 people living there, and it's going to bring a real focus to that part of town and hopefully be part of its regeneration. So I think that there's, as you can see from the update that the town clerk has produced, there's 5 separate areas that we've got subgroups all reporting in, and I think the really key thing about the Town Centre Recovery Working Group is all the people involved want the best for Michaelsville. We're all focused on what's the best for Michaelsville, and that has been our secret for success.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. So we'll move on to 9.2, which is the football mapping data.
Do you want me to go and
So,
yeah, just having a slight moment with the camera. I think that should work.
The report includes the football data up to the end of September, and you can see that the August footfall figures for the town actually increased slightly, even though they were still down a little bit on 2019. Surprisingly, September's figures then dropped quite a lot, by about 46,000 on last year, which, as I say, was a surprise. However, I think that coincides with the return of schools at the beginning of September, and also the subsequent increases in COVID rates, and the fact that communications from ourselves and Cheshire East Council and the NHS were all to be a bit more cautious. And I think that's what the figures are reflecting.
Thank you. Any questions at all on that? No? Thank you very much for that, Abby. Move on to town centre Wi-Fi data.
Yeah, just to note the report really, again shows that the sort of peak is around lunchtime, and yeah, it's fairly consistent.
Yeah. Okay.
As I say, nearly 16,000 connections on average a month. I think that's pretty substantial service provided for young people who might not have 4G.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's right. You know, it's a free service that the town.
And it's extremely easy to get onto as well. I had to do it tonight outside, and it was really easy to do.
Yeah. Well, that's good. Okay, so 9.4 is a proposal for a town centre promotion. So, Abby, are you taking this one?
Yeah. So, as Town Clerk's already mentioned, I've been doing a lot of work with the indoor market recently, and alongside that, I've also been speaking to a lot of the businesses in the Castle Quarter, which is down Back Wallgate, Church Street, etc. And all the businesses in those areas are very supportive of the town council and always willing to help us and be a shop window on our advent trail and things like that, and sharing our posts and engaging on social media. One thing that's come out of speaking to both of those groups of people is signage, and how much of an issue it is in town. The indoor market, for example, they aren't allowed to have any signage in the Grosvenor Centre. They have no signage out on the back, on the Churchill Way entrance. There's no signage on the entrances to the Grosvenor Centre, and they feel very neglected and left out. People tend to walk past rather than popping in. Similarly, Castle Quarter, whilst those businesses do a lot better, because they have sort of created their own identity, this Castle Quarter of Macclesfield, it would be great to identify that in some way and actually make a feature of it for Macclesfield. So we've just been talking generally about what sort of signage would be beneficial, and also the fact that when you arrive at Macclesfield train station, for example, there isn't much signage pointing you up to the town centre. In fact, on a walk around, we were actually stopped and asked, how do we get to the town centre? So we're thinking some more information at the train station itself, tall maps, signage pointing out key areas such as the shopping centre, police station, town hall, etc. And some sort of archway or hanging signs for the Castle Quarter to sort of tie into that oldie worldy type feel that they've got going on. I think the Castle Quarter's been around since, I can't remember the years, I'm not even going to try and remember it. And then more signage for the indoor market, some sort of flag banner out the back on Churchill Way, more signage on the lamppost around town, actually reminding people what's there, and maybe some form of directory. There is an area inside the indoor market, or inside the Grosvenor Centre as you come out of the lift, which is actually owned by Cheshire East, so that might be an option for us to be able to use that. And it would just give a little bit more just literally signposting to where these places are and what's there, and remind people in the town that we actually do have some lovely areas to shop in.
Thank you. I mean, I'll just say, I think definitely that area just near the Grosvenor Centre, where it says there, the Cheshire's land by the lift entrance. I think that would be brilliant for the people in the indoor market. To have one of those lists, you know, like you do where you go into a store and it tells you what's in there. I think that would be brilliant for them. And all the other suggestions I think are great, and I think as many of those that we can do. One addition I would just ask for is some signage for the Silk Museum.
Yes. Yeah.
Because in town, the number of times people have actually gone to the Heritage Centre thinking the museum's there and it isn't, and then they don't know where to
Where
go
to go,
from
yeah.
there. So I think, you know, maybe a couple of signs at appropriate points in the town to sign people down to the Silk Museum where we go. So the recommendation, I'll come to you in a second, Neil. So the recommendation is there on page 97.
Yeah.
So just, you know, to sort of look at that. Yes, Neil, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, this is great. I mean, another thing that unfortunately was sort of discussed pre-COVID, which seemed to get lost in the midst of time. But I think that's I fully support what the town centre manager is saying there. That actually, it's particularly for people on foot to visit the town and using the town train station as the sort of almost mapping out the journey of people through there. It was something that I think we've discussed with some of the Cheshire East town centre executive. But so I fully support that. I think I'll just reiterate what I said previously, that I think that the signs, the lovely signs that you see in the pictures here follow this idea of a legible city. So it's all about so it's as visible as possible, and we have to maintain that. And I know that the Cheshire East consultants actually said several years ago, it'll be a bit expensive, but the risk of not even having signage to your market is much graver than that. And just another thing, I think this could potentially do something to actually mean that there aren't all sorts of signs being put out everywhere. If we do it properly and include lots of businesses, there won't be lots of obstacles for people with blindness or impairments in some ways. And just my final point really is I think that I've seen in other towns they use the floor really creatively. So actually using the floor as a way to sort of there's sort of fabulous colourful crossings in Liverpool, or all sorts of interesting ways. In France, I've seen they use painted lines to get people to the museum. Really interesting, innovative ways. So I think we could do something really good. So
just if that's the proposal in the France Abbey for our work on this, I think it is the right thing to do, because it is, when you visit Michaelsville, getting to the Castle Court takes you to the town centre. And the market's a hidden asset that it's one of those things that you don't back it, but lose it. And I think I also thank her for the promotion work she's doing. I can't keep up with the Facebook. So thank you for both.
Yes, Sarah, and then Fiona.
Yeah, I only moved here almost 13 years ago, and I remember first walking into town and I had to stop several people and try and get me to walk up the 108 steps before I managed to get into town. So if you get off the train, you haven't got a clue, you can't visibly see where the town is. And I think with the likes of the treacle markets and everything that the town's, all the other businesses in the town, everything they've got to offer, I think it kind of, the signage defines the town, or it reflects its character, and I think that's what Abby's trying to do here. And I know we talked about it previously with the last town hall, and I'm so pleased that you've done this report, and I hope that it comes into fruition soon, rather than later, to see how long these things take. But definitely, if you go to places like Buxton or Bakewell, you can see what that town is, and with the history of the silk and so on, that the deck chairs and everything, you have little signs up. I've got loads of ideas in my head now, I've got those up, but yeah, I think it's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, and Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I think this is an excellent project. I think particularly in respect of getting here from, I think it's all a good project, because I agree with the issues about how you find your way to the town centre from the train station. Castle Quarter, I think, absolutely, because there's loads of new businesses down there, lots of stuff going on, really exciting. So I'm more than happy with the proposals. I don't want to repeat all this I've said. I also agree with including the Silk Museum, but I just wonder whether we perhaps just need to increase the allocation of cost if we're going to include a further sign. Whether
take you to the Silk Museum, do you mean on the signs outside the station, or do you want a separate sign? In which case we might need to think about making a further budgetary allocation. But that's what I mean. The communications and events officer might well be able to tell us whether we need to add sort of £5,000 or whatever. But I would suggest, bearing in mind we've got £15,000 in the budget for promotion and £2,000 for COVID recovery, and we're taking 10 and 15 from those respective budgets, maybe we should make it 10 from each and a total of 20,000, and then we have got enough to cover the costs, because I think that Sunderland Street and Waters Green are going to be really big happening areas, and we should perhaps think about including a sign to that part of town. Because to be fair, if you're going to be coming into Macclesfield and you arrive at the railway station, not everyone's going to be able to trek up 108 steps or Church Street. People may well prefer to go along Sunderland Street and up Mill Street. That is a more accessible route into Macclesfield. So maybe we should be giving people the dual options. Go this way and go to the Castle Quarter, the shops, blah blah blah. Go this way,
Taking the museum as well.
go to Waters Green, taking the museum.
Yeah.
Go around by Park Green, which is going to be such a happening place in the near future. Well, it already is. It's going to be even better than it is now. So I would like to propose then, in that case, while I'm on my feet, so to speak, that we agree with the recommendations contained in the report under agenda item 9.4. We agree to include information regarding the Silk Museum and the Waters Green area and that alternative route into town, and that the financial allocation will be £10,000 from the promotion budget and £10,000 from the COVID recovery budget. So there will be a total of £20,000 for the proposal.
Second.
Yeah, okay, got a seconder? Okay, well, we'll move to the vote. All those in favour? Yep. Okay, thank you. We've got plenty to work on.
Thank you.
We expect other signs going to cost more money, so you might
Well,
as
that's
well.
right. We expect great things. Well, the signs at the station can include the Silk Museum, but then, as you say, we will need other signs, and particularly if we're going to start going in different directions, then that does increase it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like the idea of there's two alternative routes into town. I think that I feel disenchanted sometimes when I see people making negative comments on social media generally about Macclesfield's dying, because it isn't. It isn't. It's a really happening town with lots of new businesses, lots of exciting things going on, and lots of independence. We want our town to be unique and different. We don't want a clone town that's like everywhere else. And I think that if I like this idea of this is the route into town by the Castle Quarter, by the heritage, by the church, into the marketplace, Town Hall, Chestergate, and this is the area down Sunderland Street. It's not, the crossings will be being opened in January, so it's not that far away. The crossings, Waters Green, the Silk Museum, and up Mill Street. Sort of almost like a pincer movement. So I do like this idea of the two alternatives into town, because if you are a wheelchair user or you have a mobility difficulty, you would be better going up Mill Lane, Mill Street, than you will be trying to get up. The London or Church Street.
Yeah. Very good. Okay, thank you for that. Right, move on to item 10, Council Identity and Communications. Abby.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just, to confirm that we're still being very active on social media, letting people know not only what the Town Council are doing, but also other things that are going on in the town, and signposting to various community organisations and places like the DIB and Samaritans and things like that. We've started using the hashtag TunneyCliff120, which is a hashtag that's been agreed for use for all the events that have fallen under the Charles Tunnicliffe celebrations for this year. We were the first to use that in combination with our Welly Walk, which had a lot of Tunnicliffe elements. The social media stats for the last full month of September show that we're still increasing our followers and likes across all platforms, It was only a month since the previous stats, just because of the way that the dates that these committee meetings have fallen. So I think 2% in a month is quite good. Again, the Mayor of Michaelsville Facebook page has doubled its followers since it launched at the beginning of June and has now increased likes by 12% since August. We've used social media recently to launch our Christmas programme with Step Into Christmas events, which has gone really well, and some fantastic feedback on all the things that we've got planned. We also have run a couple of Meet the Councillor events. Councillors Livingston, Hutchison and Councillor Jackson all attended the Greenfest event at Christchurch. It wasn't great for us, the event itself was busy, it wasn't great for us, but those that we did talk to were very enthusiastic about the green issues that the council are facing. We did have another Meet the Councillor session at Treacle at the end of October. It was unfortunately a bit damp and windy and we had to move to Scoop and Scales. But Councillor Wilcox, Councillor Livingston and the Town Clerk and Councillor Wilson all came along. And those again that we spoke to, we engaged quite well with. And we gave out a lot of promotional information with regards to our Christmas events. So that was really positive. We've already discussed the work I've been doing with the indoor market and the social media promotion that we're doing to help them along. Again, that's actually been really well received. A lot of people have commented that we'd forgotten that shop was in there, or oh yeah, actually I haven't been to the butcher's for ages and things like that. So that's been really positive. And finally, as again I think it's already been mentioned by the Town Clerk, our new website launched on the 1st of November. Officers have spent quite a lot of time checking information, putting new pages on, updating, adding new content and ensuring that everything is in an accessible format. There's probably still tweaks that we need to make and bits that we might have missed, so we'll be working on that over the next sort of couple of weeks to make sure it's all tip-top.
It'll be never-ending.
It will be never-ending.
Yes, Chris?
Just also ask a quick question in relation to the Christmas programme. You noted that communications officers prepared statements about the switching on fireworks. When would that be available?
It's already been available.
Right.
So it was shared with the local press prior to us going to Treacle on the 30th of October. The Mac Express, unfortunately, played on the negative aspects of that press statement, saying, you know, obviously that we weren't having the fireworks switch on and that it was a switch off. They knew what the full programme was, and hopefully, since I haven't had a chance to check, have promoted our full programme of events, which is 5 separate things happening from the end of November until sort of the middle of December. And there is plenty going on. Christmas is not cancelled.
All we're saying is there a statement that can be put out there? Because on some of the different state pages, I've seen comments that the town councillor not wanting to spend money.
Yes, there is a statement. It is on our page. It is on our Facebook post and on Instagram and on Twitter as well. I can send you a copy, but it is all there if you need to refer to it.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I think they're working in combination with signage, you know, actually having physical things on the ground is really going to help with this kind of mix of, because it's you know, actually getting the website working with stuff on the ground and signage working with sort of social media promotions would be really good.
Yeah. So yes, we'll be sending out the, you know, share the information, please, you know, retweet or whatever you do on that. Whatever you do. Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I mean, I think going back to the Christmas programme and the communications around that, I really do condemn the Michaelsville Express for running their Christmas is cancelled front page. I think at the current time, when the crisis we're all coping with, is really exceptionally out of order thing to do, because our information about this clearly wasn't Christmas is cancelled. We're running a massive range of events that were very well received when we spoke to residents at the Treacle Market. It's a pity that, you know, the haters are out there making comments about trying to save money and all that sort of stuff. It clearly isn't. What the town council's done, and our staff in particular, we are all going to deliver a programme of Christmas events that will be delivered, that we can guarantee will be delivered. You know, we don't want to name other councils, but councils who have previously said we are having a Christmas light switch on have cancelled those Christmas light switch on already. So to be criticised in the press that this council's doing this and that council's doing the other, you know, we could well be the last council standing in terms of our Christmas activities, and that's because we plan to organise events that we can deliver on. And I think it's very disappointing that the front page of the Michaelsville Express isn't now saying what a great Christmas programme the town council have got. In fact, I lay down the gauntlet. The closing time for the Michaelsville Express is tonight, tomorrow. Let's see what they put on the front page on Wednesday. Let's hope it's going to be what a great programme is going to be for Christmas events in Michaelsville.
I just wanted to add to what Councillor Wilson said really, and we're actually delivering more this year than we've ever delivered for Christmas, because we've got the Advent Trail, the late night shopping, the magic lanterns. There's way more on offer than there's ever has been in Macclesfield Christmas.
Just different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
It's only really the fireworks and the official switch on that have been cancelled, and that is to avoid people stood shoulder to shoulder. That's the only bit that we are trying to avoid. We don't want to stop people having fun. It's not about that. We're definitely welcoming Christmas.
Yes.
Can I just say congratulations to our officers for all their hard work and organising. Thanks, little helpers. Without them, Christmas would be cancelled. And I know you said this in light of the last 18 months with the COVID and everything, the virus and everything that's gone on. It's forced us to think of new ways of doing things. And also greener ways of doing things as well, because we are spacing things out, we are attracting people to different parts of the town, and we're not releasing loads of PM25, PM10 or red, all these particulate matter into the sky with fireworks. So yeah, and I'm really pleased with the town hall as well, so well done ladies.
I just wanted to say it's 8:10 to 9, so we might need to extend the meeting.
We'll move.
Yeah.
We may not need to, it just depends, but if we move,
Just
then
like
we'll
to
be
make sure.
okay.
Yeah.
So do you want to, do we have to state, there's some wording we have to use?
I move that we extend standing orders to enable the meeting agenda items to be completed, Chair.
Do I have a seconder for that? Yes. Okay, all those in favour? Okay, thank you. Hopefully we won't actually go over the 9 o'clock, but just in case. Thank you, Councillor Wilson, for that. Okay, item 11.
So this is to update on the Future Forest project. So there is actually no update really on this project, other than we're waiting for the developers of the Fence Avenue site to engage grounds maintenance company. Until that's been done, we can't really progress. We are doing the tree planting projects for the Queen's Green Canopy, which is going ahead. But in light of the fact that there's probably going to be no updates until the work has happened with the developers of the Fence Avenue site, it may be advisable to remove it from the agenda until we've got another update.
Yeah, I think people are nodding here. I think that's a good suggestion. Because if there is nothing to report, then we might as well just remove it until there is. It's not going to get overlooked or forgotten about, but it will become an agenda item once it's active again.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all okay with that. 12 budget, Laura.
So budget and some budget explanations at the beginning. Some of the I've just started with the earmark reserves. These will be things that we might have to put into earmark reserves if they are not spent in this financial year, and they are predominantly the parks, because we're kind of running a year or two behind now, but we've agreed to spend it, so those were the things we would put into earmark reserves. The main changes to the budget this year that remembrance and civic events have been reduced back down to pre-COVID levels. Because we'd had an underspend the year before, we put, it's the RBL's 100th birthday, hence the poppies outside. We'd increased those budget categories. I have removed the COVID recovery fund, which I hope that isn't a bad omen.
Yeah, I mean, I just asking the question on that one, because even though, you know, we're not out of this yet at all, and I'm a little concerned at the fact that I think, you know, there's still quite a lot of poverty in the town. It's not improving, and with the cuts to payments to people, the £20, what's that count?
Universal credit uplift.
Universal credit, yeah. With that being cut, and costs of fuel going up, increasing fuel costs, tax increases, council tax increases. I mean, there's so many things all going up in price for people that I think we're still going to find food banks and all those pressures are still there, and I wonder whether we should actually reconsider that decision. I'm just asking the question, really. I think there's going to be quite a lot of problems for people going forward over the next year, that they're not out of this position at all. I mean, I just know from the CAB and the issues that people are still ringing up with, you know, debt and finding you can't meet their living costs. So I don't know what other councillors think, but I was just thinking whether we should still keep some funding in.
I hear what you're saying, but actually the responsibility is the national government for taking money off the poorest people in our society, and I think, you know, that's just the point that I'd like to make.
But it doesn't help though.
No, it doesn't.
I understand what you're saying. I absolutely understand what you're saying, Sarah. It's just what level do we help, I suppose. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. I think certainly in terms of your point about the citizens' advice is a valid one. That you know, in terms of definition, we're not really out of that crisis. It's fair to say, and that continues to have an effect. So I think that if I always wonder whether you could sort of, you know, just if we're talking about the provisions of service, is it support for community organisations, support for food? I think so the officer might be better placed to say what the food group we're talking about with that. Is it still a concern for them?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the feedback that I get when I go to the meetings is that it's still very much an issue. The food network is not going away because it is still an issue. So they've got no intention of, folding up and not continuing.
Yes, Councillor Wilson, and then I'll come to
Yeah, I mean, I think that this evening we've allocated the remaining £10,000 in the COVID recovery fund to town centre recovery projects, because we've looked at the signage and that we were going to allocate 5 and we've now going to allocate 10, which will be spending that budget. In a way, I've got sort of mixed feelings about this, because it will be really good to be able to remove the COVID recovery fund, because we will be we will be hopefully moving out of the COVID crisis. But I think this is the first time we've discussed this budget. It'll go to the Finance Committee meeting in a couple of weeks' time. I think for now we should say, well, let's just take a rain check on that while we consider it, and then talk to other committees about it, because COVID recovery for this town council has ranged from the immediate grants we gave, and then a further range of grants to the community organisations that really were at the sharp pointy end and delivering, through to town centre COVID recovery projects. It's quite a wide range of funding we've used. I can fully understand why we're being proposed to look at this, because we have only spent half of it, but we have now quite rightly allocated the other half of it to the town centre, some signage for the town centre. So I think we probably need to keep a watching brief on this over the next few weeks, with a view to potentially leaving it in. So I guess I want more time to think about it, but I think that would, personally at the moment, I think that would be something that we probably need to do. We need to just keep an eye on the overall precept increases as well, because the budget comes in two different directions, doesn't it? You know, keeping things in the budget is something that we do want to talk about, and I think that's quite right. But the budget we've got here does at this current moment in time provide for a 2% increase in precept, which is not something that I particularly have any issues with. I think that, you know, we need the budgets and we're spending our money wisely. We're delivering for the people of Macclesfield, have no issue at all with any of that. And of course, it's likely with the additional house building that the tax base, our revenue will go up from Cheshire East Council because of the tax base. So I think we shouldn't make the decision to remove it now. I think we should have further discussion and go to other committees, but I'm not opposed to leaving it in.
Thank you. Yes, Sam?
Yeah, I agree with both councillors Smith and Councillor Wilson. I think two things. One, it is central government's job to look at, to deal with these things. We do know that they are disadvantaging those who are least able in this country, which is unfortunate. I think that we should just keep a watching eye and then make a decision. But I think I'd be minded, if that is the decision, that it would be grants for community groups that we would consider if we think it's that type of support we need to give them to.
So, do you want me to put it back in? Because it's not in yet. It's taken out. So put it back in for the finance committee and see what it looks like that way.
Well, I'll move that we reinstate the COVID recovery grants for future discussion, if that's going to make it simpler.
Okay.
So put it back in, and then we can see what that's going to mean for a precept increase.
Yeah.
So we're making an eyes wide open decision. But you know, there are two issues here. There are the positions people are in because of national government decisions, and it ain't going to be any better next year because what was sneaked in through the budget that was missed with celebrations about the reduced tax on fizzy wine and large barrels of beer was the fact that the council tax increase that local authorities are going to be looking at is getting towards 3% already to pay for the additional cost, plus what's going to be required to cover the additional cost of care and you know, adult social care and things like that. So let's put it back in. I'm going to put it back in so we can see the impact on the precept increase, and then we can take an informed decision about it in that regard. I'll move that. So
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I think the community enforcement budget increase is very worthwhile. Speaking to the officer responsible for a huge area of North East Cheshire, I think any way in which we can support with that is really good. And just further to what yourself and Councillor Wilson were saying, I think that there's a number of ways that we can get the budget to, because there's a number of ways in which the signage could be supported by active travel or in other areas. So I think it would be sensible to bring it in, and as Councillor Livingston says, maybe assess it on what the food organisations and other organisations come to us with next year.
Well, that's it. We work with those other groups, and we're going to continue to work with them. So I just think to have a budget for that purpose is useful. So to bring it back in, then it can be obviously discussed.
Yeah, because it's important to remind ourselves, isn't it, that the grants we were able to give came from the events budget. They came from the budget we would have spent on doing stuff that we couldn't do. So I mean, we were able to do those grants because we weren't doing other stuff. Because now we're doing lots of other stuff. So I think that's probably another reason to reinstate it, because the funds we went to during 2019 to make allocations came from stuff we weren't spending elsewhere because we weren't allowed out of the house.
Okay. Right. Yes, any further?
Well, just everything else is sort of like the increase of the Christmas lights is 3,300, not 33,300. And as Helena said, the tender will be going out next week. As Neil said, there's 30,000 for community and potential if we want that for community enforcement. And if that budget's agreed, I would start that process in January because I think it would take that long to get somebody employed by them. We've budgeted for another conservation area review of 20,000 because when we did the last one, we got a lot of people asking about Christchurch, etc. And there's a nominal increase of rent. I'd already put in the water, so that's one good thing. The water was already in there, so it's not being added to it. But I just wondered if anybody else had anything particularly glaring coming out at them or any other suggestions? We have some income we'll have some income next year and this year from the Kickstart fund because we've we've 99.9% sure got a Kickstart Junior Ranger, so hopefully they will be starting later this month, so we'll start to see that income coming in and it'll straddle this year and next year.
That's really great to hear, and that was one of my questions really was when we were going to see that, because that's a prime example of us trying to get something back from central government rather than just be constantly sacrificing to it. But I think that I'd be really interested to see whether we could do something similar with enforcement, or whether we could help sort of. But I gather that it takes a bit of time to get the enforcement officer.
Yeah, they have to recruit somebody. They would recruit for us. We could do it like the Rangers because we work very closely with Caroline Amser to recruit, so we have a choice. I don't know if they just expect us to give them the money, then a person would appear, which is more like the cctv side of it. We pay them, and whereas the Ranger we actually have. So it would be up for negotiation, but she said it would take 3 or 4 months because they have to go through all sorts of police checks. So, and then they make it so far, and then they don't make it, so then they go back to the ground. So
So, but it would be through Cheshire East.
It would be through Cheshire East.
It has to be.
To have that gravitas and be able to enforce anything, it would have, and the Cheshire East, it went through the police and Cheshire East together. So
Just to confirm as well, so we will be looking to pay for a community enforcement officer for Michaelsville itself.
Yes, that's what we would ask them. Well, I've had pre-conversations, so that's definitely.
Yeah, it's a good thing to include into the budget because, as we're aware, there's only 2 for the whole of this part of Cheshire. I believe in fact Winton have got employed Cheshire East, community enforcement as well through their town council. So yeah, it's something that I think is good to have.
Okay. Right. Any other comments on the budget? No. Okay then. So member items there are none. Correspondence, we have no correspondence. So that just leaves us to look at the date and time of the next meeting, which will be held on the 7th of February. I think that's meant to be 2022. At a location and format to be confirmed, subject to the relevant current COVID-19 guidance. So as you see, we are not out of it yet because we're still talking about it. Okay, so that's there we are. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair.
We didn't run over